But let's also take a look at the global cues that we'll be watching out later in the day. From US, as I mentioned earlier, the leading economics index is going to be out today. In the Eurozone, we have CPI data that we'll be tracking. In China, lots of data to track today, like retail sales, industrial production as well. In Japan, we'll be tracking tertiary index, industry index data. Back home, in terms of Q4 earnings, we have Bharat Electronics and Power Grid. In terms of corporate action, Borosil and Mahindra Life are expected to mull fundraising. In terms of other events, we have the UK-EU summit going on in London.
Right. Apart from that, Moody's had downgraded US credit from AAA to AA1, and they have cited ballooning debt and rising interest costs. The last major agency to hold US at its highest rating, Moody's, now joins S&P and Fitch in signaling concerns over America's fiscal outlook. The downgrade could push treasury yields higher and weigh on stocks too. With deficits expected to hit nearly 9% of GDP by 2035 and debt topping 130%, markets may start pricing in more risk as the debt is ballooning to $36 billion.
Well, absolutely. While Moody's has downgraded the rating in US, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is still downplaying concerns over the US government's debt and the inflationary impact of tariff on companies. In an interview, in fact, he slammed the Moody's downgrade, calling it a lagging indicator of US fiscal health. He also added that the Trump administration is determined to lower federal spending and grow the economy.
Right. Moving on, trade talks between US and China are being called good by Beijing after a high-level meeting in Switzerland, but steps remain unclear. Trump hinted at a possible call with Xi Jinping, but Beijing offered no confirmation on that front. Both sides have dialed back some tariffs, yet tensions linger with fresh US restrictions on Huawei and China slamming Washington's long-term jurisdiction.
Correct. Now moving on, China has also slapped steep anti-dumping duties of almost 75% on engineering plastics imported from US, EU, Japan and Taiwan. Now the move targets copolymers used in cars, electronics and medical gear. While the US faces the harshest penalties, some firms like Formosa Plastics and Polyplastics Taiwan scored lower rates.
Right. Trump is once again turning up the heat on the Fed. In a social media post, Trump urged central bank to cut interest rates sooner rather than later and took aim at Fed Chair Jerome Powell, calling him too late Powell. Trump claims there is a broad consensus for a rate cut but warns Powell may blow it again.
Well, absolutely. In fact, Trump also lashed out on Walmart, saying that the retail giant should eat the tariffs instead of blaming his trade policies for rising prices after the retail giant announced it would hike prices due to import duties. Now, Trump said that the retailer made billions and should not pass on the cost to consumers. In fact, Walmart responded saying that its margins are too slim to fully absorb the impact. But it has vowed to keep food prices stable.
On keeping focus on geopolitical events, Russia has launched the largest drone attack on the war against Ukraine, deploying 273 drones. The assault came just a day before Trump plans a separate calls with both Putin and Zelensky, aiming for a ceasefire. Trump said he wants to stop the bloodbath that claimed 5,000 lives weekly. Ukraine believes Moscow may also test an intercontinental missile today. Remember, both Putin and Trump skipped key peace talks last week.
Absolutely, Ankur. In fact, Sumita Karir is joining us on the phone line with more details on what to expect from this call. Will the US be successful in brokering another peace deal, Sumita?
That remains to be seen, and that is the biggest question, that whether there will be a peace deal, a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine, because remember, this was the biggest of promises that Donald Trump made in the run-up to his election as a president of the United States again. But today's call is going to be crucial. The U.S. president saying that he will phone his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, and that is going to be followed by Ukrainian leaders and NATO allies in a push to bring the Ukraine war to an end. In fact, Donald Trump, in a social media post on Truth Social, has stated, and I quote, hopefully it will be a productive day, a ceasefire will take place, and this very violent war, a war that should have never happened, will end. So Trump's remarks, remember, come a day after the first Moscow-Kiev talks happened in 3 years. There were, talks planned in Saudi Arabia earlier as well, but the talks in Saudi Arabia with officials from both sides did not yield anything. However, a significant breakthrough was made as far as these talks, which happened in Turkey, are concerned. Remember, there was a prisoner swap agreement. Both sides agreed to exchange 1,000 prisoners each. Now perhaps there will be discussions on what is the next step that needs to happen. The next step perhaps would be a meeting between Zelensky and Putin. Remember, on Saturday, the Kremlin spokesperson also said that Russia is considering that move, but only as a result of the work, and upon achieving certain results will there be an agreement on both sides. So this is going to be a crucial call. Also remains to be seen whether Russia will be agreeing to ceding parts of the territory which Ukraine has been asking for. Remember, Russia has also been pressing for excluding Ukraine from the NATO membership, and that is something that is very, very crucial for Ukraine. So all eyes are on that call today.
Right, Sumita, stay on, because India clarifies on port curbs on import of certain Bangladeshi goods. Sources say government has restricted ready-made garment imports to just 2 ports, Kolkata and Nhava Sheva, in a reciprocal move to Dhaka's trade barriers. Now, Sumita Chaturvedi has got more details on this matter, who keeps a very close eye on this.
As far as limited restrictions on port restrictions on select Bangladeshi goods is concerned, government sources are telling us this essentially was done to restore an equal market access in the relationship. Bangladesh has asked for that, and India has allowed all exports from Bangladesh without any restrictions. Transit and market access, however, to the northeast had been restricted. So this is to sort of gain equality in the relationship. Then, of course, sources also suggest that RMG imports from Bangladesh, they were restricted at only 2 seaports, that is Kolkata and Nhava Sheva, like you mentioned. And this, India is seeking as a reciprocal measure to Bangladesh to impose similar trade restrictions on Indian yarn and rice. Those were imposed a few days back. Then Indian sources also suggest that the government is essentially looking at Bangladesh's activities as cherry picking and assuming Northeast as a captive market for exports while denying it market access. So these are some of the things that we are learning from government sources on port restrictions on certain goods, which were essentially imposed on ready-made garments, processed foods, plastic items, amongst a whole host of other segments. This was issued by the Commerce Ministry on Saturday. Remember, these restrictions are not applicable on Bangladeshi goods that are transiting to India, but they're destined for Nepal and Bhutan, which essentially means that these goods are meant for Nepalese and Bhutanese markets, so they won't be restricted. Overall, the India-Bangladesh trade is at $12.9 billion. This is essentially the size in 2023-24. So India is, of course, taking a strict stance as far as Bangladesh is concerned. Ties between the two countries have not been, at their best, and they have suffered massively ever since Sheikh Hasina was extradited. She was made to flee and come to India. And after that, the comments that have been made by Mohammed Yunus, who's the caretaker in China, particularly with respect to India's chicken neck, or whether it's related to India's northeast, they have been concerning.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.